In the last lecture, we looked at this triangle, and we figured out the sine, cosine, and tangents of one of the angles based on the given side lengths. But what if you don't know the side lengths? What if all you have is the measure of an angle and you want to know, for example, what its sine is? Well, there are a handful of angles where we can give an exact answer to that. For example, 1/2 or 1 over the square root of 2. But most of the time, these trig values are going to be an irrational number. That is, they're in the same category as pi, where their decimal versions never end and never repeat. So your only recourse, in most cases, is going to be to go to your calculator. Now, there's a big potential pitfall here. If you remember back in our discussion of measurement, we talked about different units for measuring angles, their degrees and radians. Any calculator that has these trig functions will be able to take the angle measures in both of the two units. And this is where the trouble starts. When I have students come to me with problems that they're sure they've set up right, but they just aren't getting the right answers, the first thing I do is have them check which unit their calculator thinks they're using. And there's a really quick check you can use to confirm this. Just ask your calculator what the sine of 90 is. If you get back 1, then your calculator is doing the calculations in degrees. But if you get anything else, then it's working in radians. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you how to fix this, since it's going to depend on the specific calculator that you're using. The best advice I can give you is just to go search online for your calculator's make and model number, along with something like switch from radians to degrees, and then follow the manufacturer's directions. Let's take a look at this question. This is an example of what we call solving triangles. And that refers to a situation where you're given a triangle and some of its measurements, and you're asked to find the measurements of the missing parts. Right? So here we're given two of the angles. We've got the 90-degree angle, the 51-degree angle, and we're given that 4-inch side. We want to find three other things. Now, there are three things here that we need to do. We need to find A and C. We also need to find that missing angle up at the top. So let's do the angle first, right? Because we kind of get that for free. Remember that all the angles have to add up to 180 degrees, which means this missing angle has to be 180 minus the 90-degree angle minus the 51-degree angle, and that's going to come out to 39 degrees. So that's this missing one up here. All right, so now how about the size? Well, to get the size, this is where the trigonometry part is going to come in, right? Let's take a look to start off with. Let's look at this side C here, right? If we think about this 51-degree angle, this 4-inch side, that is the adjacent side. And that C side up there, obviously, that's the hypotenuse. So I know the adjacent side's length, and I know the length of the hypotenuse. This is where you stop and you think, okay, which trig function is adjacent over hypotenuse? Well, that's the cosine, right? So this is going to be the cosine of that 51-degree angle. All right, so now let's put some numbers in here. Put one more number in. Cosine 51 degrees. The adjacent side is 4 inches, and the hypotenuse, that's C, right? That's the one that we're trying to find. Okay, so now I got to solve. Now I've got an equation, right? All I need to solve this equation, and we're home free. Well, for now, I'm going to leave that cosine 51 the way it is, right? I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it just as that expression, and I'm going to multiply both sides by C, and we get C times the cosine of 51 degrees equals 4. Right, now that cosine of 51, don't let that get in your head because there's a trig function going on there, right? That's just a number, right? In a minute, we're going to go to our calculator and we're going to put a number in there in its place. So if this were 3c equals 4, what would you do? Or you divide both sides by 3, by the number. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to divide both sides by the cosine of 51 degrees. They cancel over here on the left, and we get C is equal to 4 over the cosine of 51. All right, now this is the point where I'm going to go to my calculator, right? And I go to my calculator and I ask, what's the cosine of 51 degrees? And it gives me 0.6293, repeating decimal, right? It's a non-repeating decimal. It never ends. So usually I'll round to 3 or 4 decimal places. That's generally going to be good enough to give you a reasonably accurate answer. Obviously, if the question you're doing is more specific and tells you how many places to round to, okay, then that's what you should do. Right, so now if you go to your calculator, right, you ask it what's 4 divided by that number, you get 6.356. That's the length of C, 6.356. All right, so now we've got to find A. And to find A, we have choices, right? Because there are two trig functions that use the side opposite the angle. There's the sine function, and there's also the tangent function, right? Which one should you use? Well, I'm going to use the sine function. And the reason is, if I use the tangent function, then I have to use the angle that I'm given, and I have to use this value that I calculated. And that represents a potential little roadblock. Because if I made a mistake with that C value and got it wrong, then my A value is going to be wrong. Right? So anytime I have a choice between using a number that I calculated and a number that I was given, I'm going to go with the number that I was given because I'm 100% sure that that number is right. Right? So I'm going to use the tangent here, and we'll get the tangent of 51 degrees. Now you remember the tangent, that is the opposite side's length divided by the adjacent side's length. The opposite side, that's the one we're trying to find, is A. The adjacent side, that's 4. This is still tangent of 51 degrees. So let's multiply both sides by 4. And we get A is equal to 4 times the tangent of 51 degrees. So at this point, I'm going to go to my calculator. It says the tangent of 51 degrees is 1.234897. I don't know why I did that many decimal places, but I did. If you stopped at 3 or 4, like I said, that would be fine. Multiply this out, 4.9395 however many decimal points the question or your instructor professor says you should round to, right? That's where you're going to go for your final answer. And that was the last missing side, right? That is the final missing piece, 4.940. Go ahead and round it to 3 because I did this one to 3. Right, and now we've answered the question. Right? We have solved this triangle by filling in all of its missing sides. So far, we've taken an angle and used that to find the trig value, to find the ratio of a pair of sides. In the next lecture, we're going to go the other way around. We're going to take the ratio of a pair of sides and see how we can go the other way and use that to find the value of a missing angle.